This is Ovid's Metamorphoses, translated into English by Alan Mandelbaum. Book 12. But Father Priam, since he did not know that Aeschylus was still alive, although in feathered form, mourned for his son in vain. Before an empty tomb on which the name of Aeschylus had been inscribed, the honors the dead are due were paid to him by Hector and all his other brothers. Only Paris was missing from the mournful rites, for he was not at home just then. He'd gone to Greece. A little later, he returned indeed. He brought a stolen wife together with a war that lasted long. 1,000 ships pursued him. At his back the many clans of Greece, the ranks of all Pelasgians, had massed. That mighty band would soon have won quick vengeance if they had not met rough storms. When set to sail from Aulis, rich with fish, the port of the Boeotians, their fleet was blocked by tempest winds that made the sea impassable. And to appease the gods, as Danaans always do, they carried out their rituals. The ancient altar now was blazing with the fires kindled for a sacrifice to Jove. Just then, they saw, even as it climbed up a sycamore that stood nearby the place that served their rites, a blue-green serpent. In that tree-top stood a nest that held 8 fledgling birds. All these he seized, just as he did the mother. She was circling round her nestlings frantically. His greedy jaws soon swallowed them. The Greeks watched this with wonder. Calchas, son of Thestor, the augur, who had always read the future correctly, cried, "O Greeks, we shall be victors! Rejoice, for Troy will fall, but only after a long and wearing war." And as a sign that it would last 9 years, the birds were 9. Entwined around the tree's green boughs, the snake was changed to stone, and even to this day, that stone retains a coiling serpent's shape. But Nereus's rage does not relent. Untamed, he churns the waves and winds. He won't permit the fleet of war to sail from Aulis's port. And some suspect that Neptune's very self had stirred the surge, that he might save the walls of Troy, which he had built. But Thestor's son does not agree. He knows the truth, and he does not conceal it. Agamemnon slighted Diana when he killed her sacred stag. And to appease the virgin goddess's wrath, the Greeks must offer up a virgin's blood. Now pity yields unto the public cause, and kingship overcomes a father's love. Iphigenia stands before the altar, among attendants all in tears. But just about to spill such dear chaste blood, Diana relents. She screens the scene with a dark cloud, and at the climax of the sacrifice, amid the pleas and outcries of the crowd, the goddess substitutes, they say, a hind in place of the young virgin of Mycenae. That victim was more seemly. Once the hind was sacrificed, Diana and the sea both felt their wrath appeased. With winds astern, 1,000 ships sailed off, and after long and troubled sailing, reached the Phrygian shores. There is a borderland, a place where three realms meet: the earth, the heavens, and the sea. The home of rumor, high upon a peak. From there, whatever happens anywhere is seen, and in that palace, any word that's ever spoken in the universe is heard by ears that wait, alert. And though her house has endless entrances and boasts 1,000 apertures, no thing can close those openings. There are no doors, and so that house, by night, by day, is never shut. Since every part is built of sounding brass, each word that's spoken in the world rebounds. The brass vibrates, repeating every sound. No quiet and no silence can be found. And yet there is no clamor, just the soft murmur of voices, as of rolling waves when heard from far away, or like the last faint rumble of a distant thunderclap when Jove has spurred dark clouds to clash. A crowd, forever coming, going, fills the halls, and mingling with the true, the false reports, in thousands babble wandering about. Some fill their idle ears with chatter, some relay to others things they've heard. The sum of clishmaclaver grows. To tales retold, each teller adds his own fresh furbelow. Here is credulity, here heedless error, unfounded joy, and consternations, fears, sudden seditions, and the hissing words of unknown whispers. She, Rumor, knows all that is done within the heavens and on sea and land. Throughout the world she probes. Now it is rumor that has spread the word that ships are drawing close to Phrygia's shores, a fleet that's carrying sturdy warriors, and thus the disembarking Greeks were not an unexpected foe. The Trojans block the Greeks' advance, they pin them to the coast. Before the fatal lance of Hector, you, Protesilaus, were the first to fall. The Danaans, in those first encounters, pay a heavy price, as Hector's prowess takes a deadly toll. The many he has slain add glory to his name, but Trojans too lose many men. They learn what Greeks can do. The shores of the Caenis had grown red. For Cycnus, Neptune's son, sent down to death 1,000 men, and now Achilles pressed ahead. He rode his chariot, he stretched battalions on the ground with his stout lance, made of the wood of Pelion. He searched among the Phrygian ranks for Cycnus, or for Hector. It was Cycnus whom he met. He had to wait till 9 years passed before he clashed with Hector. Then, as he urged on his white-necked stallion, straining at the yoke, straight at the enemy Achilles drove. His stout arm lifted high his lance. He cried, "Whoever you may be, young man, you die, but take this solace, you are slaughtered by Achilles of Haemonia." His words were followed by his heavy spear. His throw was accurate, straight to the mark, and yet his pointed spearhead struck without effect. It bruised the chest, as would a blunted shaft. "O goddess's son," such were the words of Cycnus, "yes, I have heard that you were born of Thetis. Why be amazed to see me stand unscathed? You see this casque with plumes of tawny horsehair. You see the hollow shield my left arm bears. Well, I need none of this in my defense. I only wear these arms as ornaments, even as Mars when he wears battle dress. Were you to strip me of this armor, I should still escape unscathed. I can defy your claims. My mother was no Nereid. My father rules both Nereus and his daughters. He's Neptune, and indeed the whole expanse of sea is subject to his firm command. So Cycnus spoke, and then he hurled his lance against Achilles, and its tip held fast the hero's curving shield, and then, through brass and through 9 layers of oxide, it passed. But when it reached the 10th, the spear head stopped. Achilles shook that weapon off, then cast another quivering shaft with his stout hand. But Cycnus's body still was left intact, unharmed, and even with another shaft, the third, the Trojan was not wounded yet, although he took no steps to shield his flesh. At that Achilles raged just like a bull that rushes through the wide arena when, with deadly horns, he charges hard against the crimson cloak that has provoked his wrath, and finds that cloak eluding his attack. Achilles checked his weapon, lest by chance the tip had been dislodged, slipped off the shaft. But no, the wooden lance still held it fast. "Is then my hand so weak?" the Grecian asked. "Has it, all at once, lost the force it had? For surely I've been strong before when I led the attack that razed Lyrnessus' walls, or when, because of me, both Tenedos and Thebes, the city of Aetion, ran crimson with the blood of their own men, and the Caicus' flow ran red with those I killed along its shores, and Telephus twice over felt my spearhead's fatal force. But here too, on this beach, there are these heaps of corpses I have made, and I can see my right hand had, and still has, potency." That said, almost as if in disbelief of what had happened earlier, Achilles hurled hard his lance against a lowly Lycian, a soldier called Menoetes, and he pierced his breastplate and his chest beneath. Menoetes now clattered headlong on the solid ground, a dying man. Achilles plucked his shaft out from the warm wound as he cried, "This hand, this spear, have brought me victory. Oh, I hope that he whom I had failed to fell before may feel that their force, and with the same result." That said, he cast his ashwood shaft at Cycnus. It headed straight. The Trojan did not dodge. The spear struck a resounding thud against the shoulder of the Trojan on the left. But then it bounded back as if a wall of solid rock had checked its course. And yet Achilles sees that where his lance had struck, there is a spot of blood, and he exults. In vain. There is no wound. The blood he sees is nothing but the blood that was Menoetes. Achilles trembles now with rage. He leaps down from his chariot, for what he seeks is combat, hand to hand. His gleaming blade smites Cycnus, piercing both his shield and casque, but turning blunt when it meets his hard flesh. The Greek has reached his limit. He holds close his shield, and with his sword hilt showers blows upon the Trojan's face and hollow temples, and, hounding Cycnus, stunning him, allows no respite. Cycnus panics. Shadows swim before his eyes, and as he staggers backward, he stumbles on a rock that blocks his course across the field. With unrelenting force, Achilles presses down against him, pins the Trojan to the ground. He is supine. Then, thrusting with his shield and his tough knees against the chest of Cycnus, he unties the thongs that bind the Trojan's casque beneath his chin, and now Achilles, drawing these tighter and tighter, chokes his enemy. He blocks his breath, the life path soul must seek. He starts to strip his foe, and then he sees that underneath the armor, there's no body. For Cycnus had acquired a new form. The sea god changed him into the white swan, whose name the Phrygian had already borne. This work of war, this battle in its wake, was followed by a truce of many days. Both sides lay down their arms, no clash, no fray, a time for rest. And while keen sentinels stood guard around the trenches of the Greeks, the festive day drew close. A solemn feast. Achilles, victor over Cycnus, seeks to placate Pallas with the heifer he is offering to her. He sets the meat in slabs on the warm altar. Once the fragrance in which the gods take such delight has risen to heaven, for the rite the gods receive the innards, men can banquet on the rest. The chiefs, reclining on their couches, eat their fill of roasted meats as they appease their worries and their thirst. No instruments, no lyre, no boxwood flutes with many vents, and no songs sound. They don't need these. They pass the night in talk as they retell the acts of bravery, their own, their enemies. Their theme is war, and they delight as each in turn recalls the risks and perils met and overcome. What else can fill the speech of an Achilles? And if others speak within the presence of the greatest Greek, can anything but valor be their theme? Above all, they discuss his recent feat, his fight with Cycnus, and his victory. They all consider it astonishing that Cycnus's body never could be pierced, that he emerged intact from every clash, all iron blunted when it met his flesh. Achilles' own self still was wondering, just like the other Greeks, when Nestor said, "In your own generation, none but one invulnerable could contemn and scorn all arms. No sword could do young Cycnus harm. But long ago I saw a warrior, Caenus of Thessaly, whose body showed no wound, though he had faced 1,000 blows. Caenus, who had Mount Othrys as his home, courageous Caenus, famed for warlike feats. And what was even more amazing, he was born a woman." Hearing this, the Greeks, astonished, begged old Nestor to complete his tale. And like the rest, Achilles asked, "Come now, old man, so wise, so eloquent, for all of us long so to hear the rest. Who was this Caenus? Why did he change sex? In what campaign, upon what field of war did you meet him? Who was his conqueror, if he was ever beaten?" And old Nestor replied, "Old age has dimmed my memory, and many things I saw in my young years escape me now. Yet there is much I can recall. But of all things that I have seen in war and peace, no thing clings more to me than Caenus. And if anyone's long years have seen great things, well then, I have no peer. Two 100 years and more have passed before me. My life is now in its 3rd century. The fairest girl in all of Thessaly was Caenis. Famous for her beauty, she, daughter of Elatus, was sought by many. Her suitors flocked from every nearby city, and to Achilles from your own. Indeed, her region was the same as yours, and Peleus might well have sought her out as wife, had not your mother been already wed, or pledged to him. But Caenis had no taste for marriage. Then, so the story goes, as Caenis strolled along a lonely shore, the sea god took her by force. And Neptune, having harvested the pleasure of his latest passion, said, "Whatever you desire, rest assured, you need but ask for it, will soon be yours." And Caenis answered, "What I have endured is so outrageous that I now must choose some mighty gift as recompense, a thing that will prevent my ever suffering such injury again. If you but grant that I not be a woman any more, you will have given all that I would ask." The tone in which she uttered these last words was deeper, such as suits a male. Indeed, she had become a man. The god who keeps the sea was quick to answer. He'd appeased her longing, and had added one more gift, conceding this to her. No blow might pierce her body, and no iron weaponry could ever kill her. Gladly she, now he, goes off to spend his days in masculine pursuits along the fields of Thessaly. Now there in Thessaly the Lapith king Perithous, the son of bold Ixion, had wed Hippodame, and for the feast a row of tables ordered properly had been set out beneath green woodland trees that graced his grotto. He most cordially had called on the ferocious Centaurs born of Cloud, Ixion's wife, to join the rest of his fine guests, the chiefs of Thessaly. I, too, was there, and in the royal cave the crowd was loud upon that wedding day. They chant the nuptial hymn, the spacious hall is filled with smoke from fires. Now the bride, escorted by the matrons and young wives, approaches. One sees beauty when she strides. We said, "Indeed, how happy you must be, Perithous, to win a wife so lovely." That greeting turned into sad irony. You, Eurytus, the wildest of wild centaurs, inflamed by wine, are now inflamed still more on seeing the fair bride. Your drunkenness compounds your lust and breeds a brouhaha. They overturn the tables, and the feast is in an uproar. The bride is carried off, dragged by the hair. She's snatched by Eurytus. As for the other centaurs, each one grabs the one that strikes his fancy, or instead, whatever woman he can snatch, a scene that suits a plundered city. Women shriek throughout the house. We all leap up at once, and Theseus is the first to cry, "Enough! What madness, Eurytus, drives you to this? How dare you, while I'm still alive, defy Perithous? You know not what you do. With one foul act, it's 2 men you attack." And then
To show that he had meant his threat, great-hearted Theseus pressed through that mad crowd of centaurs and set free the newlywed. But Eurytus was silent. No reply that he might make could ever justify his savage act. Instead, with arrogance, he charged courageous Theseus. With his fists he pounded at his face and noble chest. By chance, an ancient massive vat adorned with forms in high relief stood close at hand, and Theseus, rising to full height, seized this and hurled it at the face of Eurytus. Then from his mouth and wounds the centaur spouts both blood and brains alike. He vomits wine and, stumbling, falls on the damp ground, supine. His biform brothers, when they see him die, go wild, and all as in a chorus cry, "To arms! To arms!" They are urged on by wine. The onslaught starts with flying cups and frail oil flasks and curving basins. These served well for feasts, but now are war and slaughter's tools. The first who dared defile the inmost shrine was Amycus, Ophion's son. He stripped the sanctuary of its votive gifts. He rushed to snatch a candelabrum thick with glittering lamps. He lifted it on high, as if it were the axe with which one strikes the white neck of a bull in sacrifice. Oh, with that he smashed the face of Calydon the Lapith. One could hardly recognize the face that Amycus had crushed. The eyes slid from their sockets, and the facial bones were shattered, and the nose was so thrust back it ended in the middle of the palate. But Pilates of Pella wrenched away a table leg of maple, and with that felled Amycus straight through the centaur's chest. His chin was driven. Even as he spat his teeth and his dark blood, the Lapiths smashed again. He sent the centaur to the shades of Tartarus. Grineus stood nearby. He watched the smoking altar with mad eyes, and then, "Why can't we use this too?" he cried. At that he lifted up the giant mass, its fire still burning, and that centaur cast the altar straight against the Lapith ranks. It crushed Orion and crushed Proteus. Orion was the son of Mycale. They say that with her magic chanting she had often drawn the moon's horns down to earth, although those horns moved most reluctantly. Exadius avenged those deaths. "Just wait until I find a weapon, then you'll pay," he cried, and snatched the atlas of a stag that hung, a votive gift, on a tall pine. The fork-tipped atlas gouged Grineus's eyes. One eyeball stuck upon the painted horns, the other slid down to his beard and hung within the clotted blood below his chin. Then from the altar Rhoetus snatched a brand of white-hot plumwood. From the right he smashed Caraxus's temples, and the tawny hair that crowned the Lapith blazed, a blinding flash like dry grain set afire. Within the wound the blood was scorched. One heard a horrid hiss, the kind that iron, glowing red, emits when from the forge it's lifted by the smith with curving tongs and plunged into a vat. It sizzles as the water turns lukewarm, As eager fire devours his shaggy hair, the wounded Lapith tries to beat it back. Then from the ground he rips the threshold slab, and lifts it shoulder high, a stone that could strain even an ox team. Its very mass won't let him hurl it far enough to catch his enemy. Instead, it crushes his own friend Camoetes, who stood close to him, too close. And Rhoetus, he's beside himself with joy, explodes. Ah, yes, I can only hope the rest of you can show the strength he showed. And with that same brand, half burned, again he strikes Caraxus's wound. Then, with insulting thrusts 3 and 4 times, he beats the Lapith's skull until the bones disjoined sink deep into Caraxus's brains, reduced to watery gruel. Triumphant, Rhoetus rushes to attack 3 more, Evagris, Corythus, and Trias. When Corythus, whose cheeks are veiled by his light beard, his first is felled, Evagris taunts, "What glory can you gain from slaying one who's but a boy?" But Rhoetus won't permit another word to issue from those lips. Into that mouth he thrusts ferociously the flaming brand that puts an end to his speech. And through that open mouth the flames now reach into Evagris's chest. And Trias, you so fierce, are what the centaur next pursues. He whirls his firebrand above his head, but this attack does not end like the rest, even as he exults in all the deaths that he has caused you, Trias, taking up a charred stake, strike him hard just at the point where neck and shoulder join, and Rhoetus groans and struggling tugs the stake out from hard bone, and now it is his turn to flee, he soaked in his own blood. These others also fled, Oeneus, Lycabas, and Medon, wounded in his right shoulder. They were joined by other retreating centaurs, Thaumus and Pisanor, and Mermeros, one who so recently had beaten all who raced against him, now, encumbered by a wound, is forced to slow. And Pholus, Melanaus, and the boar hunter stout Abas, and the augur Astillus, who warned his fellow centaurs to refrain from battle with the Lapiths, but in vain. His comrades did not heed his augury. To Nessus, who, afraid of wounds, had fled together with him, Astillus had said, "Oh, you need not flee. The bow of Hercules, that is the fate that you are meant to meet." But Lycidas, Eurynomus, Imbreus, Areus, none of these evaded death. All 4 were felled by Drias. His right hand struck them in front. You too, Creneus, met death by a frontal blow. Though you had turned in flight, you did look back. Andreas sank a massive lance between your eyes, just where the nose and forehead join. Amid that fracas, Aphidas, unperturbed, immersed in sleep so deep that nothing could awaken him, reclined full length upon the shaggy skin of an Ausean bear. His languid hand still held a cup of watered wine, no lance. He was no threat, he did not attack, but that did not prevent his death. For Phoebus saw that young man sleeping there far off, and through the thong along his javelin he drew his finger, Then as soon as he had cried, "Go now to drink your wine that's mingled with the waters of the Styx," his hands let fly his shaft of ash wood, and its iron tip pierced through Aphidas's neck as he by chance lay with his head thrown back. He died with no alert and no awareness. Black blood flowed in spurts. Out of Aphidas's throat it gushed, over the couch and into his wine cup. With my own eyes I saw Petreius strive to wrench an oak tree from the ground. From side to side he shook the acorn-laden trunk, his arms encircling it. Now it's loose, just one tug more. But then Pirithous, right through Petreius's rib cage, cast a shaft, its steel tip pinned the centaur fast against the tough oak tree he'd tried so hard to wrest. They say that Lycus was undone because Pirithous was stronger than he was, and stronger too than Chromis, whom he crushed. But from these victories the Lapith king gained less fame than he won by conquering two other centaurs, Helops and Dictys. The shaft he cast caught Helops on the right and pierced his temples through to his left ear, while Dictys, even as he fled in fear, chased by Ixion's son, fell headlong from a hilltop down its farther sheer cliff side. With all his body's weight he crashed among an ash tree's boughs. His centaur's guts adorned the branches. To avenge him, Aphareus rushed up. He wrenched a rock from that hilltop and tried to throw it, but the oaken club of Theseus, son of Aegeus, caught him just in time and shattered his huge elbow bone. Then, having neither time nor patience for finishing off the centaur's battered form, the son of Aegeus leapt upon the back of tall Bianor, one who till then had not carried anything but his own self. He dug his knees into Bianor's sides. With his left hand he hugged the centaur's hair, and with his knotty club he smashed his face and cursing mouth as well as his tough temples. And Theseus with that oaken club did in Lycope, skilled at tossing javelins. Nedamnus, Hippasos, whose flowing beard shielded his chest, and Ripheus, taller than the treetops, and he overcame the force of Phareus, who along the mountain slopes of Thessaly caught bears and brought them home alive and snarling still. Demoleon found Theseus's victories too much to bear. For some time now, with all his might, the centaur tried to wrench a great pine from the ground with trunk intact. Unable to do that, he broke the trunk in half and hurled it at the son of Aegeus. But quick to draw back, Theseus escaped that throw, because he had received Minerva's warning. So he said, and would have had us others understand. And yet the crashing trunk had some effect, for it sheared off from giant Crantor's neck his chest and his left shoulder. Oh, Achilles, young Crantor was your father's armor-bearer. Amintor, king of the Dolopians, defeated in his war with Peleus, gave that youth to him as pledge of peace and faith. When Peleus from far off saw that fierce wound, he cried, "Crantor, so dear a boy, accept at least this gift, to honor you in death." And at that, with sturdy mind and steady strength, he leveled at Demoleon his lance. It cracked his rib cage, lodged within his chest, and quivered there. The centaur tried to wrench the weapon loose, yet only freed the shaft, but not the lance head. This he could not catch. Within his lungs the pointed tip held fast. His pain just makes his courage more intense. Demoleon rears up, then charges at the son of Aegeus. But the hero's casque and shield protect his shoulders, so he checks the centaur's trampling, clattering horse hooves. Now Peleus holds his lance high, and then he strikes Demoleon with a single thrust that finds the centaur's human and his equine chest. Before that, Peleus had already struck both Hellas and Phlegreus from far off, and Caenis and Iphinos close up. To these he now adds Dorylas, who wears no spear. Instead, he sports a savage pair of spreading bull's horns fully stained with blood. I sighted Dorylas, and I cried out, for fury urged me on to greater force. Now you will see how poor a thing your horns must be when set against my shaft of iron. And I cast my lance. He could not dodge the shaft, but tried to fend it, lifting his right hand to shield his forehead where my blow would land. The lance head pinned that hand against his brow. The shouts were loud, but while the centaur froze, impaled and helpless with that bitter wound, Peleus, who stood nearby, struck from below. He pierced the centaur's belly. Dorylas sprang forward. His guts dragged along the ground, and as they dragged, he trampled them. They burst, and he, his legs entangled with his guts, collapsed, his belly empty, to the earth. And Cyllarus, your handsome form did not save you in that ferocious fray. Oh, if one may be allowed to call a centaur handsome, his golden beard had just begun to grow. His hair was golden even as it flowed over his shoulders to his equine chest. His face had features strong and eloquent. His neck, his hands, his manly chest could match the finest statues, just as did the rest of all his human parts. But, too, below, the grace the centaur's equine features showed was flawless. And if one were to bestow a horse's neck and head on Cyllarus, the muscles on his chest were so robust, his back was just so suitable as seat, he could have served as Castor's worthy steed. He was all black, more black than pitch, and yet his tail was snow white, just as were his legs. Though many female centaurs sought him out, no other female of the forest tribe of those half-animals could ever vie with fair Helonome. And none but she possesses Cyllarus. She honeys him, she loves him, and again admits her love, and takes fine care of her fine limbs within the limit that such limbs permit. Now she would smooth her long locks with a comb, now deck her hair with wreaths of rosemary, or violets, or roses, and at times she wears white lilies. Twice each day she bathes her face within the brook that rushes down the wooded mountainside of Pagasa, and twice she dips her body in that stream. She only drapes her shoulder and left side with seemly dress, the finest wild beasts' hides, and each requites the other's love in full. They roam the slopes as one they rest in tranquil grottos, and it was as one that they had come to join the Lapith feast, and side by side they fought. O Cyllarus, We do not know who threw the shaft that struck your left side, piercing you a bit below the spot that joined your neck and chest. Oh, your heart was barely grazed, and yet, when they plucked out the lance, your heart and all your body froze. Hilonome rushed up. She helped support his dying limbs, her hand caressed his wound. She tried to hold back his last breath by pressing lips on lips, and when his death was clear to see, she murmured words too faint for me to hear in that uproar. And then she cast herself upon the very shaft that had pierced him, and as she died she clasped her husband in a close embrace. My eyes still see with clarity Theocomes, who bore 6 lion hides that he had tied together, knotting them, enough to shield his human and his equine halves. He threw a log 4 oxen would have strained to move, and from above it struck and smashed the skull of Tactaphus, the son of Olenus. The Lapiths' dome was shattered, through his mouth and eyes and ears and hollow nostrils oozed his soft brains, just as curdled milk strains through those withes of oak that countrymen will use when making cheese, or just as soggy must will drip when pressed down thick through a clogged sieve. But when Theocomes stooped down to strip the Lapith's arms, your father witnessed this. It's my sword thrust that pierced the centaur's guts, and Chthonius and Teleboas too fell by my blade, while one bore a forked bow, the other bore a lance, and with that shaft he wounded me. A scar you still can see, however old that wound may be. Ah, yes, they should have sent me out to Pergamum to conquer it, for then I had the strength. My arms could then have checked, if not surpassed, the arms of Hector. But in those days he was not yet born or still in infancy, and now it is old age that weakens me. And shall I tell you just how Periphas struck down Pirithous, or how Amphix's shaft, although without a tip, when cast straight at the galloping Echeclus, smashed his face? How Macareus of Pelatronia struck Erigdupus's chest and laid him low? Oh, I remember how a hunting spear that Nessus's hand had hurled was buried in Chimelus's groin. Oh, and do not think that Mopsus, the son of Ampicus, was only there to serve as seer, pronouncing prophecies. Oh, for Morphos's lance, laid low by Formodites, and when that dying centaur tried to speak, he found his tongue was pinned just to his chin, just as fast to his throat his chin was pinned. Oh, by then 5 centaurs had already met their deaths at Caenus's hands, Antimachus and Bromus, Elymus and Stiphelus, and one who bore a battle-axe, Pyramus, although I am clear as to their names and number, I cannot recall how Caenus killed each centaur. Now Latreus, massive in his bulk and stature, rushed from the centaur's ranks to challenge Caenus. He bore the arms of one whom he had felled and then despoiled, Emathian Halessus. He was not young, he was not old. The age of Latreus stood midway. Though hair was grey upon his temples, he could still display a young man's energy, a sight to see, and fear. He bore a shield, he bore a sword, and also bore a Macedonian lance. Between the Lapiths and the Centaurs' ranks, he clashed his arms, he faced each host in turn, while wheeling, galloping, he poured these words upon the empty air, his boast, his scorn. Must I, O Caenis, suffer one like you? For me, you'll always be a woman, you are nothing more than Caenis. Yes, you seem to have forgotten that your origins were feminine. You don't remember what you had to do to merit this reward, the price you paid to earn yourself this false appearance of a man. Remember then just what you were at birth, what you went through. Go now, take up the distaff, that's your due. Take up the basket heaped with threads, the wool your thumb can twist. Let men attend to war. But when he heard such boasting, Caenus cast a lance that pierced the side of Latreus as the Centaur's flanks in his great gallop stretched, and just where horse joins man, the lance head smashed. Enraged by pain, the Centaur then struck back. His shaft caught Caenus in his naked face. The lance recoiled even as hailstones do when they have struck a roof, or as a pebble rebounds when flung against a hollow drum. Then Latreus closes in. He tries to thrust his sword into the hardened sides of Caenus, but there's no point where he can pierce the Lapith. But you can't flee from me, the Centaur cries. My point is blunted, but my blade can slice edgewise. His long right arm then angled so his stroke that he could hack with one great blow across the girth of Caenus. When it hit the Lapith's flesh, the sword blade clanged as if it had struck marble, breaking into bits against the toughened skin. When Caenus felt that he had let them marvel long enough as he stood there unharmed, he cried, "And now it's time to try my blade upon your body." And he drove his deadly blade up to the hilt in Latreus's equine chest. Again he turned the buried blade within the guts of Latreus, and in inflicted wounds. And now these biform centaurs, clamoring and frenzied, charge at Caenus. It is he whom all, as one, assail with sword and lance. But when their shafts have struck, their shafts fall back. Despite their blows, the Lapith stands intact, unpierced. Not one of his blood is shed. A sight so strange astonishes them all. But then the centaur Monicus outcried, "How shameful is this sight! We, a great tribe, are challenged by a single man, indeed, by one who is but barely a man. Yet it is he who is a man in truth, while we, who shirk and cringe, are nothing more than he once was. What use are our tremendous limbs, our doubled powers, and the gifts received from nature, which combines in us two beings who are the mightiest of living things? I scarcely think we are a goddess's sons or fathered by Ixion. He was one who dared to hope that he would win great Juno, while we have let a half-man do us in. Come, let's heap trunks and rocks and blanket him with mountain masses, simply smother his tenacious soul beneath an avalanche of forest. Let us suffocate his throat. Don't pierce him, just use weight and crush and choke." And that said, he chanced to find a toppled tree trunk, a trunk the wild south wind had overthrown. This Monicus heaved straight at sturdy Caenus. The rest were quick to do what he had done, and soon Mount Othrys had been stripped of trees, and there was no shade left on Pelion. Now buried beneath that mass of trees, their giant weight upon him, Caenus heaves and writhes. He tries to lift that ton of rocks upon his sturdy shoulders, but the heap grows heavier upon his head and face. It's hard to breathe. He's left with little space, beginning to give way. He can't stand straight. He tries in vain to reach the air, to free his body of those forests. Oh, one could see from time to time some movement underneath that heap, as if Mount Ida, as I speak you see it just beyond us, were to shake with an earthquake. We do not know just how he died. Oh, some say his body was thrust down by all that forest force to Tartarus's deep hole. But Mopsus, son of Ampycus, contested this. He said that he had seen emerging from the muddle of that heap into the sky a bird with golden wings, a bird that I too saw just once and then never again, and Mopsus, sighting it, a bird that in slow flight was hovering above the Lapith ranks with its loud wings, with both his eyes and heart still following its flight, cried out, "O Caenus, it is you I hail, the glory of the Lapith people. You were a mighty warrior, and now you are a bird that has no similar." And since Mopsus had profound authority, his story was believed. The grief increased our fury. We could not forget that scene. One man against so many enemies. Nor did we set aside our swords until, to ease our sorrow, we in truth had killed half of our centaur foes. The rest took flight, escaping under cover of dark night.
Such was the tale that Nestor told, the war between the Lapiths and half-human centaurs. Tlepolemus, however, could not curb his sorrow at the lack of any word from Nestor on the feats of Hercules in that great battle, and so he said, "My lord, I am amazed that you did not record the deeds my father, Hercules, performed. He often used to tell me of the sons of Cloud, the centaurs he had overcome." At this, the lord of Pylos said in sadness,
"Oh, why must I bring old sufferings to mind? Why must I open bitter wounds that time had hidden, if not healed? I now confess my hatred of your father, my deep sense of harm and hurt he caused me. Oh, by the gods, his deeds were glorious, beyond belief. I would prefer to cancel, if I could, the merits and just praise that he received, the fame the world proclaimed. I can't deny the truth. But we don't praise Deiphobus or Polydamas, nor do we extol even great Hector. Who would praise a foe? Your father was the culprit who laid low Messene's walls. He savaged my own home with sword and fire while devastating both Elis and Pylos, cities without blame. And not to speak of others whom he slew, we sons of Neleus numbered 12 fine youths. All of us were felled by him except for one, myself. Though all the other deaths may have to be borne patiently, there's one whose death still stirs astonishment, for he was Periclymenus. The line of Neleus begins with Neptune, and this gift he gave to Periclymenus, the power to take and then to shed at will whatever shape he pleased. When faced with Hercules' assault, my brother took in turn so many forms, but all those forms were vain until he changed into the bird the king of gods loves most, the bird that in its claws grips thunderbolts, and with the force that only eagles own, my brother with his wings and curving beak and hooked claws ripped the face of Hercules. But then your father aimed his bow far too precise against that bird, and as it flew to height on height and hovered in the sky, the arrow struck the joint of wing and side. The wound was not that deep, and yet it sliced the sinews. They cannot respond. All flight and movement are denied. With weakened wings he cannot ride the air. He falls to earth. His body presses now against the shaft that pierced and still hangs from the wing. Oh, at that the arrow is pushed through his upper breast, and then juts out near his throat upon the left. Now, splendid leader of the fleet of Rhodes, do you in truth think that I must extol your Hercules? The vengeance that I seek for my dear brother stops at this, my speech, in telling of the Lapiths' victory, omitted the great deeds of Hercules. This does not break the bond of amity, Telepolemus, between yourself and me.
Such were the graceful words of Neleus' son. And when the old man's speech was done, the Greeks all shared in Bacchus's precious gift once more, then rose up from their couches. Any hours of night that still were left belonged to sleep. But he who rules the waters of the sea, the trident-bearing Neptune, still feels grief, a father's sorrow for his son, transformed into a swan, the bird so dear to Phaethon. He can't forget his Cycnus. He detests the cruel Achilles. Nothing curbs his wrath. His rage is past all measure, and the war has lasted almost 10 long years by now. And he turns to the unshorn god Apollo. Of all my brother's sons, you are by far the one whom I love most. You labored hard beside me as we built, although in vain, the walls of Troy, and now that they will fall so soon, so doomed, don't you lament? Are you not grieved when you recall the fighting men who fell defending the great battlements? I will not name them all, but can't you see the shade of Hector, even as they drag his corpse around his pergamum? Meanwhile, the terrible Achilles, more bloodthirsty than war itself, the one who wrecked our work, still lives. If he would only come before me, in reach of my own trident by the sea, I'd have him feel what 3 prongs can inflict. But since I'm not permitted to confront Achilles face to face, won't you instead have him meet death by covert means, a shaft he cannot see? The Delian agrees, just as his uncle and his own self wish. Wrapped in a cloud, Apollo then is quick to reach the Trojan ranks. There he can see, amid that slaughter, Paris aiming shafts from time to time against a crowd of Greeks. Revealing his identity, Apollo asks, "Why waste arrows killing common folk? If you are so devoted to your Trojans, then aim your shafts at Peleus' son. Avenge your slaughtered brothers." So Apollo said, and then he pointed out just where Achilles was felling many Trojans with his lance. The god turned Paris' bow in that direction, and when the shaft was shot, Apollo guided the well-aimed arrow with his deadly hand. Since Hector's death, just this had brought the gift of joy to the old Priam. Only this: Achilles, victor over mighty men, now you have fallen at a coward's hands, a ravisher who snatched a Grecian wife. But if a woman was to take your life, it is an Amazon you would have liked to fell you with her double axe beside Thermodon's banks. The man who terrified the Phrygians, Aeacus' far-famed grandson, the unsurpassable chieftain, who adorned and shielded the Pelasgians' name, is burned. And Vulcan, who had made Achilles' arms, is that same god whose flames consume him now. He is but ashes. All that's left of great Achilles hardly fills a little urn. Only the world can be commensurate with such a warrior. In such a space the son of Peleus is his own true self, and not confined to hollow Tartarus. Reminding us of just how great he was, even his shield spurs warriors to war. The Greeks contend. Each hero takes up arms that he might bear the arms Achilles bore. But neither Menelaus, lesser son of Atreus, nor the greater Agamemnon, nor Diomedes, not the lesser Ajax, Oileus' son, nor other mighty chieftains dare claim the right to bear Achilles' weapons. Just two have claims upon a prize so grand. Only Laertes' son Ulysses, and the greater Ajax, son of Telamon. But to elude a task that none would envy, reluctant to decide between those two contenders, Agamemnon summons all the Argive chieftains. Mid-camp, they assemble. He calls on them to choose, to end the quarrel.